Hello world! Curses and madness be upon you all for life fighters. It looks like the broken ghost is finally picking up the pieces before it throws them halfway across the galaxy. Yesterday, the Apex Legends Twitter account dropped this phenomenal audio-visual encounter, following up on Loba's promise to Revenant that she had something for him at the Bonsai Plaza. It turns out Loba had already retrieved Revenant Source Code and thrown it in a phase runner halfway to Gridiron. An awesomely choreographed, purely audio fight scene then takes place, with Loba emerging victorious, and she strides off having taken the sweetest revenge that she can come to, securing the source code's location for herself and turning Revenant's own resolve against him. But that resolve is most certainly going to haunt her for the rest of her days. This is a really good way to exacerbate Loba and Revenant's dilemma, switching up their power dynamic to give Revenant a bit more agency while allowing Loba to achieve some tangible form of revenge, with her having control over the head and getting to watch Revenant suffer, moving us back to this sort of more complex direct antagonism between the two. And obviously this is going to come back to bite her, but that's the whole point. That's conflict for you, that's long-term storytelling, that's how this works. The idea here is you're meant to have empathy for both sides, like they're both quite justified in their actions and drives and emotions, but because of the nature of the circumstance, both sides are pretty damn flawed. That's the point, and you can't really take anything away from either of them for doing what they're doing. It's all pretty logical why they've come to the decisions that they have. But as said, that comes with a lot of flaws. Loba has pretty determinedly put anyone who comes close to her in actual danger now. Sadly, that is the cost of achieving such an extreme lifelong goal, though. And it's something she's probably already considered. Like, I imagine very soon we're going to see her actively pushing herself away from Bangalore, the person who she's kind of become closest to over this time. And as that pushes into the future, that could actually lead Bangalore to take up the cause of finishing Revenant off for Loba, so that all three of them can rest. Someone pointed that idea out to me. I think that's a brilliant way to take their overall character arc, and it could even see sort of the remnants of the original Season 6 sort of draft storyline that they were working on. But I think that having waited to get this kind of resolution out of it makes it all the sweeter that we had to wait, think, mull over it with Loba before she comes to a pretty resolute extreme decision. Which brings us to the Gridiron bit. Halfway to Gridiron could obviously be just a phrase, it could mean anywhere in space, but taking it as an actual location does mean that we've sort of got a location to start looking towards, and that we can extrapolate some sort of info around. The phase runner we know at this point, thanks to the Project Marathon loading screen, should only be able to take cargo of that size, that kind of distance. The phase runner on Olympus can transport humans, but it's been proven that greater mass changes trajectory at greater distances. Horizon's research can obviously lead into improving this somewhat, and a character like her pushing towards interstellar travel would obviously be a strong draw for someone like Bangalore who wants to reach somewhere like Gridiron. However, Bangalore being brought up, her and Loba's personal connection that has been building over the last few seasons could be where Loba has gotten the idea to use Gridiron as a location to almost throw Revenant off the trail. It's entirely a ruse that Gridiron is even anywhere to focus on at all, so that Loba has actually got more precise local control of Revenant's head. Getting to Gridiron, though, would obviously be something that Bangalore wants to do, and if we are to get there within the Apex Legends storyline, I'd kind of hope that that comes before the end of her overall character arc. Like, it would be a huge shame for us to actually get there and see her no closer to home. But that's a great way for us to continue her character's story. Gives her a strong reason to stay with the games and find her own family there. We could also see her actually reach some kind of home and an end of an arc, but she chooses to stay with the games to keep Loba safe because that's what's more important to her. Either way, somebody, most likely Bangalore, but also potentially Revenant himself, is going to end up teaming up with either Horizon, Wraith, or maybe even Ash to try and progress the phase runner to that point. If Revenant hasn't already thrown himself in the phase runner after his source code, right? Like, that could actually prove a few things for us. If he gets thrown into the vacuum of space and dies and gets reincarnated somewhere, then his source code is still linked to the resurrection apparatus, which means that it hasn't been thrown into the deepness of space. It's been thrown somewhere particular where it can be re-linked up so that Revenant can keep living and dying and living and dying. To me, that almost spells the idea that especially how the phase runners would be linked or how they would be used and where you could send stuff with them, that the source code has just been intercepted by Hammond to actually put to their own use. They were trying to use his head to build a simulacrum army out of it after all. There's plenty more to see from this, like the Season 7 voice lines have been leading us to believe and to sort of follow up on this Revenant and Loba piece, and that could also probably offer us some development into the Crypto-Caustic-Watson relationship, which might seemingly be coming up in the new stories from the Outlands Fight Night. Ultimately, I love where they've taken this storyline from here. It's a great way to keep the dramatic tension and keep the characters more actively involved and in direct antagonism against each other, while also allowing Loba to feel like she's tangibly accomplished some kind of goal that her whole life has been leading up to. This is what happens when you bring character motivations against each other. You're going to cause more shit, and that's all that we're here for. This is what everybody wanted. Everybody wanted the Broken Ghost to continue. Here it is. This is what logically happens when you've got those pieces set in front of you. Anyone who saw this coming, yeah, we saw this coming at least as a possibility because of the setup and drives of the characters at hand. This is a really well executed way to continue that storyline, and it sets us up for a bunch of potential things to come as well. Even if we don't know where exactly the head is still a loaded Chekhov's gun to go off multiple times in the future. Whether that's against Bangalore, whether that's against the potential of reaching Gridiron, whether it's regarding Gridiron itself once we actually get there, whether it's regarding Bangalore's relationship to Loba and or Revenant, who she chooses to work with and or against because of the situation. Who else could step in to actually have impact on that sort of situation as well in the future, again specifically regarding anyone linked with the Phase Runner technology. And while this is obviously a very central conflict for the Apex Legends storyline all told, I'm glad that it's being dealt with so succinctly so we know where we all stand and we can actually try expanding on some of the further out stories and try and work them all in together. Every legend needs focus, no story is more or less important than any other. The Broken Ghost sort of hasn't stopped as it is. Like, this is the whole Apex Legends storyline. It encompasses more characters than just Revenant and Loba. There are more motivations and intentions at hand than that. And I think that's great. There's a ton to come out of this, and some of it should be coming very soon. I'm not a big fan of all the contrarian Charlies who want to be like, oh, Loba couldn't have beat Revenant. And yeah, she could. Like, she's been seen before fighting multiple robotic assailants. She also just threw them both off the top of the Reverie and teleported to the ground to avoid actually hitting the floor. She also kind of shot Revenant a few times. Like, this woman is an Apex legend. She's already fought Revenant multiple times, and she fights people probably equally as strong, skilled, or talented as Revenant on the regular. Just going, 300 years, makes you sound like Riot Games. And you're not open to the minutiae of how a fight scene turns out, you're just concerned with power levels. You people are fucking boring. Revenant's kind of advantage is it doesn't matter if he loses a fight because he just comes back anyway. Again, if he does die pretty soon, that means that his source code is no longer linked to the apparatus, and he's actually gotten what he wants for a bit. Also trying to be like, oh Loba, your plan is stupid, when we don't know the whole plan or whether it's even true or not is like stupid. Trying to be like, Loba, you're a bad person because you're putting the people that you care about and that care about you at risk is like, yeah, that's a character flaw. Well done. That's what that's there for. Like, everybody's asking for this story to continue, and now that it's continued, everybody's moaning that it's not over, essentially, or that Revenant hasn't devalued the entire story by pulling a massive twist and being like, haha, I've got my source code now, fuck you. What does that do? It doesn't do anything. If anything, it just devalues any depth that his character actually had. So yeah, this was the obvious way that this was going to go, because that's how motivation and logic works. Like, it's not perfect by design so that you can continue making conflict and storylines out of it. Welcome to writing for live service. If anyone's actually like disappointed, I think you just might have your expectations of what this whole story actually is and can be maybe a little out of whack. And personally, just try and go along for the ride. Enjoy it for what it is instead of trying to always see an end goal in sight, because they ain't coming anywhere close anytime soon. It's the journey along the way that's kind of the point in the first place. I'm very happy to see them trying this new experimental style. The fact that they actually showcased an entire fight scene purely with sound cues, I think is actually pretty damn fantastic. Offers such a different way to experience that kind of thing. How you can imagine that fight scene will look so different to everybody, but it's still succinctly shown as taking place at the top and concluding at the bottom of the Reverie elevator, mirroring what happened when Loba's parents were killed, shifting their power dynamic, and actually showing us how the fight worked. I think this piece on its own is fantastic. I'd love to see them do more of it. It's almost like an audiovisual novel, especially having Fryda Wolff and Darin DePaul's fantastic voice acting on top of it. So, with that is definitely enough out of me. Definitely not enough yet from Revenant and Loba, but it's coming in the future, and that is more than we can really ask for. Thank you for staying with me, friends. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves today, and I hope you'll enjoy yourselves tomorrow. I've been Euclidean Vision, the emotional support. Take care of yourselves out there, teammates, and may the glorious light of Baskerville shine within you. Bye-bye.
Do